Hi, I'm Megan. Welcome to today's live reading from Love in the Roses by T.L. Clark, presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Join me for Chapter 1. Chapter 1, Fair Warning. The sun beamed down, highlighting my lady mother in its rays as I rode beside her, along the hedgerow-lined boundary of the fields. Butterfly hennons kept our hair out of sight, whilst brown and red gowns billowed about our feet. "Mother, look!" I whispered, bringing my layered horse to a halt and pointing upwards. Edging closer to the bushes so as not to be seen, then bringing the horses to a standstill once more, we both stilled astride our mounts. Sweet, trilling chirps descended to our ears as the skylark leapt back up to the sky, singing brightly. The mottled brown bird was mesmerizing, silencing us in our admiration. Up, up, up it leapt into the clear blue sky from the short golden stubs of wheat below. Across the field another bird flew up, joining the chorus, and another. "Oh, mother, hark! Are they not the most beautiful singers you ever beheld?" I inquired in hushed tones as the birds began to land once more. A soft smile spread across my mother's cheeks. "Aye, Isabel, they are indeed admirable creatures." "Ah, to be so free and happy as they!" My shoulders rose and fell with a smiled sigh. "You fancy they enjoy greater freedom than yourself, mayhap?" Hanging my head, I answered, "My apologies, mother, but I must confess to harboring such thoughts." Shaking her head, she urged, "Come, let us investigate closer this revelry which causes such discontent." "But we shall disturb them." "Not too greatly. Come, they may yet teach you a lesson this day," she replied, dismounting and securing her horse. Obediently, I followed suit. Slowly we crept around the wheat with deft footsteps, not wishing to destroy the crops. Near the outer edge, we soon discovered a depression in the ground. There sat 3 grayish-white, brown speckled eggs in a nest of grass and hair. Pointing, Mother noted, "You see? They do not sing for joy alone. They sing for mates and territory. Besides, they do not also run the risk of capture and ending on our table?" "Oh," was all I could say, my head drooping and a blush blooming. Leading away from the field, Mother consoled, "I do not say this to be unkind, daughter, merely to illustrate that you are not so very hard done by. We each must toil in this life. It is merely in different ways." Getting back into her saddle, she waited for me to do likewise. "Look yonder and observe the plowmen in the fields. They work hard so we may all eat. We are here today to observe village life." "Yes, mother." Catching my gaze, she added, "And we work hard to ensure the estates are maintained to enable such activity, as well as providing the household with the next generation." "Yes, mother," I repeated. Each person we have ridden past has been busy about their tasks. There is no idleness. Without the blacksmith and the carpenter, the tools would not have the ability to prepare the land. Without the plow beast and the plowman, the fields would not be furrowed. You have already witnessed harvest and the intensive labor involved, and then the miller grinds the grain so the bread may be made. Softening her tone, Mother continued, "We all have our part to play, but we may also find enjoyment in our endeavors if we seek it." Taking a deep breath in, I nodded. "Yes, when we succeed in the eyes of God, we are indeed rewarded." "Good girl. When we do our part well, it reaps its own rewards, a sense of satisfaction in a task well done. And we may also see it in those around us, for they too shall be happier when we all work together." As if they were in agreement, the skylarks resumed their song flight behind us as we walked away. Hooves clip-clopped as we passed men, women, and children weeding fields of crops. Water roared, our ears heard before our eyes caught sight of the raging river, their watermill not yet turning. We did not make our stop here, however, choosing instead to continue on to the woods. Finding a quiet spot under the branches along the forest edge, Mother lowered herself to the ground. Patting the earth, she encouraged me to sit by her side. Taking my hands in hers, she began, I brought you here to take you away from prying ears. It is not yet common knowledge, but your father has started to seek a husband for you. I had no wish for this discovery to be made by accident or to arrive as a shock unto yourself. Thus I forewarn you of his intentions. A husband so soon? Come, my dear, it is not so great a surprise as all that. Close up your mouth. You are of an age where these things are to be expected. You have begun your monthly courses, demonstrating your readiness, and your father and I grow no younger. But you have such long lives ahead of you as yet. My stomach clenched at the very notion of anything to the contrary. We can never be certain of such things, as you are well aware. Have your brothers and sisters not all been laid to rest? Here she stopped, taking a deep breath. Pray forgive me. I did not intend to cause you sorrow, mother. My gaze turned downward. Calm yourself. It was not of your making, but you stand alone as our surviving child. We would endure your security and happiness before we too depart this world. My hand shot up to my ears. I have no wish to hear of these things. Lowering them with her own hand, mother replied, But you shall hear me nonetheless. It is for your own good, and you need not fear, considering our position, along with your green eyes and red hair, a favorable match is not beyond reason. With this knowledge, you have been given time to become accustomed to the idea of matrimony, unless you harbor a desire for the church. Shaking my head vigorously, I replied, No, pardon. I mean to say, as much as I respect the sisters, the life of a nun is not the path I foresee for myself, if such a choice pleases you and father. Very well, as was my expectation, you are therefore resigned to matrimony? Of course, I meant no disrespect. It was never my intention to gainsay father's wishes. Hush now. Had I thought you at risk of defiance or bolting, this discussion never would have taken place. But I have a confession of my own, for as time draws near, I have felt a growing desire within myself to not waste our remaining time together. Squeezing my hand tighter, mother continued, You are the best of daughters, truly. You may never know what I suffer at the thought of our parting, but I know you will make us proud. She could carry on no further. Tears were welling in her eyes. Oh, mother, how shall I ever part from one such as you? If I have been the best of daughters, it is only because you are the best of mothers. We embraced one another in the shelter of the trees, allowing tears to freely fall. The river gushed in the distance beyond the woods. Mercifully, there was nobody to witness our pitiful scene. Was there ever such a wilting of women at this moment? The looming sorrow washed over us as surely as if the river had burst its banks. My dutiful mother was soon to be separated from me, her last remaining child, and it clearly broke her heart as much as my own. For who could know of what would happen beyond the environs of the home? On our ride back, we visited others amongst the villagers, even distributing bread to the frail and elderly. This was by no means the norm, but it was good to be out of the house on such a fine day. We were met with smiles and courtesy, despite mother's protestations that people should not stop their work on our account. My lord father and lady mother were well respected, known to be fair and honest. I was mindful of the symbiotic nature of the people after mother's discourse on the matter. Previously, the pride that had existed in each person had escaped my notice, but with opened eyes, I saw there was an honor here in the part these people played in our estate. The shame that oversight burned my cheeks. It was late afternoon by the time we returned home. I changed out of the voluminous riding gown and into a simple blue one with a slim edging of gris fur. My red hair was concealed under a steeple hennin with a conical adornment and with a sheer veil. My green eyes spoke of trepidation. Mother cautioned me before we encountered others in the household, a warning to school my features. The bishop was visiting the parish priest, and both were to be present at dinner this evening. Demure apparel was called for, whilst still reflecting our status. My father, Sir John, was a knight after all. One had standards to uphold. All suitably attired, we went as a family to receive our guests. An excited huddle of tenant farmers was the first to arrive. The hay harvest had been brought in last month, and the wheat was yet to reach maturity, so those invited to this meal were able to reach the manor in good time. Loud slaps of backs and cheers erupted as father's friends, some fellow knights, were welcomed. A couple of their number were now members of the Parliament. Other guests included members of the household, such as the chamberlain, bailiff, and steward. There was a good crowd, and all were shown through the chapel. The bishop and the parish priest sat in pride of place nearest father. The rather nervous chaplain gave the signal, and the minstrels began to play. After their prelude, mass was conducted. Conversation burst forth as all subsequently filed into the great hall. A fine service, the bishop was so good as to congratulate the chaplain. Why, I offer my gratitude, your excellency. I am humbled by your notice, the man replied with a bow. All took their place at the tables. We, along with the honored guests, sat upon the dais. The remainder spread down in order of rank. Minstrels climbed up into their gallery and serenaded the whole affair with song, fiddle, lute, and tabor. Might I say once again how honored we are to have you here at our humble table, your excellency? Father proclaimed. The bishop waved his hand and nodded in both appreciation and dismissal of the recognition. Yours is a fine home, Sir John. Your chapel is elegant, and you have a fine man here in Father Peter. You will hear no argument from me on that score, my lord. The priest's cheeks developed a rosy hue at such praise, but remained silent, his head bowed. I find the parish church in a good state. Your rod screen, with its depictions of St. Edmund's, George, and Barbara, do you credit. They have stood my family in good stead many a year, but not out of the norm in the house of a knight, I think. Nearby knights and MPs murmured their agreement, for St. George and Barbara in particular were common patrons among them. St. George was not only the protector of themselves, but of the husbandmen and shepherds important in this area of Suffolk. To be certain, however, there is a new edition of King Richard III. Is it not good and proper to have one's monarch depicted? It seems a rather bold statement in these uncertain times, the bishop replied with a frown. With many years of unrest between the Yorkists, from whence the current king ascended, and the Lancastrians of kings not long past, such declaration may be viewed as rash. But father was proud of his loyalty. His assistance to the battle of Tewkesbury 13 years prior had earned him more land. It had also left him with a limb. Our family pride had long since been tied to the House of York, but clearly this bishop leant another way. This was surely a great misstep in winning the bishop's favor. Instead of justifying his case, father diverted the conversation. I trust all else met with your satisfaction, your excellency. The altar cloth alone is as fine as any you'll see. Yes, very fine. I witnessed this exchange with not a little dismay. All too aware how highly my father valued the good opinion of others, this did not seem to bode well. As a justice of the peace, he strove for harmony, and not this apparent discord. I say, Sir John, this lamb is exquisite, one of his comrades admired. It gladdens me to hear that, for it hails from our estate, father acknowledged with humble pride. Conversation quickly turned to husbandry, the best way to rear sheep, and the price they expected to fetch for wool, but the bishop's eyes rolled more than once. Pardon us, your excellency, we are but simple country folk, and are almost as fervently protective in our flock as you must be of yours. Father apologized with a jovial chortle. At last, a hint of a smile passed the lips of our ecclesiastical guest. Quite. Which puts me in mind. Let us have some tales, father announced, clapping his hands. Having caught the attention of the minstrels, he instructed, Let us hear about Aesop the lion and the mouse. The bishop muttered under his breath something of too many books going into print. Mayhap imprudently, Father commented. Mercy is rewarded if I recall the tale correctly. There's never any telling how one perceived as small may help a greater being until the act is done. A smirk flitted across his face momentarily. But does not Aesop also tell of not reaching too far? The bishop returned with an arched brow, his head inclining. One must never extend beyond one's boundary, of course, but hard work and humility bring their own rewards. When one acts with honor, one can achieve greatness. Some should mayhap be content with what they have. Chortling Father bowed his head. Ay, that is as may be. But then if you subscribe to such doctrine, you would not be sitting there now, I suspect, your excellency. There came a grumbling from the bishop, who turned his attention to the players acting out the story. At the end of the meal, instructions were issued to place leftover food at our alms gate for the hungry paupers, this time of year when it was most required. All guests bid their farewells. The bishop looked quite sour as he departed with his quivering priest, but once they were away, the others found their voice. Thank the Lord someone put that prating fool in his place. You're braver than I, my friends, one said. Have you ever seen me back away from a challenge? My father asked in mock hostility. No, indeed, I should think it more likely that we get snow this month than to see our Sir John shy away, his friend said with a laugh. I care not a fart for what that wastrel in fine cloth and his babblement, another added. I smiled secretly to myself. Father's aim had not been to attain respect from one bishop, as I had previously supposed, but to confirm the support of many others in his place.